Roll call, please.
Roger Sprague.
Here.
Dick Anderson.
Here.
Gordon Eggleton. Gary Ellingson is excused. Chester Norikis.
Here.
Wes Ryan.
Here.
And Henry Quant.
Here.
I'm looking in the audience for citizens present, and I don't see citizens, although I guess you two are citizens, even though you're staff. So we'll go on from comments from citizens present to no minutes of the meetings of July 14 and August 11 available at this time. So we'll cover those at the next meeting. So let's move on to special order of business and presentations. We have 4 items and potentially 5. The first one is the amendment to the urban renewal plan, and it's an update. Allison.
Good evening. Can I have the lights, please? Thank you. Okay. We'd like to provide you with an update on the amendments to the urban renewal plan this year. Yes, we had 2. In February, the agency approved a minor amendment to the plan through Resolution 2014-02. And with this resolution of minor amendment, it extended the urban renewal district through an underlevy where only 20% of the tax increment is collected, up to the existing maximum indebtedness, and the other 80% of the collection is going to the overlapping taxing districts. This revenue sharing will not exceed 10 years, which will be June 30th of 2024, although projects may still be completed with the remaining funds that are available that have been collected during that time. And in order to implement the minor amendment, the resolution also directed staff to work on a substantial amendment in order to make improvements in the north part of the city. And a substantial amendment is triggered by a boundary change of the district. So that's why it's called substantial versus what's called minor. Guided by our consultant, Elaine Howard, staff went through various steps in the process for a substantial amendment, including sending letters to the taxing districts and meetings, briefings, public notice. And up on the PowerPoint, you'll see a schedule of when those things happened. In August, City Council approved Ordinance 2014-20 to amend the plan. And this included a change in the urban renewal district boundary, which added roughly 34.5 acres to the area. In your meeting packets, you should have the amended plan and report that will go into effect on September 25th. So this is really just to kind of close the loop and bring it back to you all, let you know in your other capacity as City Council what was done, and give you the finalized report. Questions?
Any questions? Okay, let's proceed on to item number 4, which is the D-Lake traffic signal construction night work.
This project will remove the wires at the signalized intersection, replacing the signal with mast arms, and include audible pedestrian crossing signal and signal housing reflectors to enhance safety and visibility during power outages. It's also the project that will precede the overhead utility undergrounding. This will get rid of the wires at the traffic signal that's there now. We have 3 change orders that are before you. The first one is a change order request that occurred due to ODOT requirements, although it wasn't discovered until after the project was bid. And this is to have fiberglass lens covers on the signal heads. This came up at our pre-construction meeting and was recommended, and so the contractor moved forward with requesting that change order. The second change order is a no-cost change order to relocate a control cabinet so that it will be avoiding the door opening onto the pedestrian pathway. And the change order number 3 is that a request for night work costs. There have been some recent changes to ODOT permitting in terms of lane closure allowances, which became effective for the timing on this particular project. The permit did not allow for any daytime lane closures, so staff worked with ODOT to determine if any of the requirements could be relaxed. And timing on this project was dictated by an anticipated boring December start for the utility undergrounding, which at that time of bidding the project we thought would be happening. paving, soil conditions, and rainfall with the traffic pole foundations, which are quite deep. Work on the project began in early August, and ODOT was not able to permit any daytime lane closures through September, which led to this change order request for costs associated with required night work. The project is moving along, and all 4 traffic poles are installed. The 4 borings for the electrical conduit are complete. Next, they will set the traffic signal heads, finish doing the electrical connections and inspections, remove the old pole bases, install the new sidewalk and corner ramps, and do the striping. So things are on schedule to complete the project late September, early October, given that they have been working during night for the work that's needed when they have to do a lane closure. Staff recommends approval of these 3 change orders for the project.
When do they have, or what are they projecting for a final completion of the project?
Their schedule says the end of September. So
2016?
for the traffic signal, it will be done.
No, I meant the whole project of the undergrounding, including the traffic signal.
Well, we haven't bid the other portion, so it's hard for us to know how long that will take. I imagine that work could be done before the boring in December, and of course we'd try to avoid the summer tourism season, but I just don't have a realistic time frame on how long the non-boring part of the utility undergrounding would take. But I imagine it could be done within 2015.
Yeah, well, if we're boring in December of 2015, is it conceivable that we don't actually complete until 2016?
Well, we would just kind of flip the order of the events. So we do the boring at the end of the project instead of at the beginning of the project.
So it doesn't really slow it down then?
So I don't think so. It's just a matter of doing, cart before horse or horse before cart, which assumingly would work either way.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'm still
Right.
bewildered. So they're not going to do any boring until a year from December?
Yeah.
December of 2015, they're going to bore?
That's our intended estimate of the schedule, and the reason is because the impacts to the businesses that are right next to the D River, the state park, for example,
Right.
and the restaurant, those properties would be heavily impacted with the equipment needed to do the boring under the D River. So the best window for that to happen for those property owners is in December.
Well, I understand that, but that's another whole year. That's what I was questioning.
Yeah, so we can't, and this is the next item on the agenda, is to talk about the schedule. That's okay. Talk about the schedule for the undergrounding, but staff is seeing that it's just not going to be feasible for us to bid this large-scale project and get it all ready to go to start construction this December. It would mean that we would have to bid the project in October, and the plans are not fully complete. We don't have easements in place, and I'll probably repeat myself in a few minutes on that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'll let you go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'd
Yes, Mr.
get us back on track in this agenda item and make a motion to approve the change orders for the South First Street traffic signal project in the amount of $33,734.
Okay, second. We have a second. Any discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Sprague,
Yes.
Norikis,
Yes.
Quant,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Ryan,
Yes.
and Eggleton. Yes. Motion carries.
Okay, let's move on to item 5, the D-Lake Utility Undergrounding Design, Lighting, and Schedule Update.
Okay. And I do have a picture of the traffic signal with the poles, the new poles showing there next to the old poles that will come down. So that's kind of where we're at. Okay, for the utility undergrounding design, this is to underground the utilities through the D River wayside. As the design moves along, we have needed some feedback from you on various refinements about, where the project begins and ends, and the incorporation of the east side utility lines into the design. And now we're asking for further direction on lighting options. Pacific Power has provided some estimates. The design contract with HHPR, which was formerly ACE Consulting, we did not include lighting in our past discussions because we just assumed that the lighting that was there now, which is functional, would continue and remain the same. With with this direction, staff needs to hear if you prefer to use, for that existing lighting, do you want to use the existing wood poles? Do you want to use new wood poles? Or do you want to use fiberglass poles? Keep in mind that the poles will actually be what they call topped at the top of the light, so it won't be a pole with a light stuck out of the side. They'll cut it nicely, so I'm not advocating for any one or the other option, but I just wanted you to be aware of that. And let's see, then there's also the decorative acorn lights, which are similar to Ocean Lake, and those are a lower lighting output, so there would need to be some additional design work about, from lighting engineering, about lumens and how much or little ODOT requires the highway to be illuminated, and there's some unknowns there with the decorative acorn lighting. So we have some costs from Pacific Power. And I apologize, this was not in your packet. We just got these figures in from Pacific Power. The existing wood poles and lights that are there now would be $10,000. The new wood poles and lights would be $25,000. The fiberglass poles and lights, this is if you were to select fiberglass poles, we would need to wait to hear back from their engineer to make sure that the fiberglass poles could accommodate a 14-foot arm, which is what's there now. So keep in mind, if you prefer fiberglass poles, that would be assuming that option were available. And then the decorative acorn lights would be $19,000, and this would also, besides the engineering for that lower light output to make sure that it was sufficient for the highway, would also require concrete bases, and that would just be incorporated into our design work and construction bid. Also, Pacific Power noted that if you prefer to change the lighting type to LED, that it would run about $480 additional per light, and there are 5 lights total through that project area right now.
Don't have a separate tariff on that yet, right? I
don't know. I could find
The last information I have is they don't have a separate tariff on that, meaning you're going to pay the same electric bill for LED lights per month as you pay for the incandescent. Even though, until they establish last I heard, they did not have a separate tariff. That's regulated by the PUC. Somebody has to petition for that. So right now, it doesn't make any sense to switch to LED, pay more, and then pay the same amount per month.
Yeah.
A question about the existing wood poles and lights. What kind of a life expectancy do we have on those? Do we know?
No, I don't know. They would just fall under the existing maintenance and operations that's there now.
Which is their responsibility.
Okay. Questions?
Staying with that, the existing wood poles and lights are the tall lights that are there now. Mm-hmm. Is there any of these options that help eliminate poles?
Well,
that was part of our objective, was to get rid of wires and poles. And I'm just wondering, to what height is going through Taft and Ocean Lake, the acorn lights are smaller, shorter.
And more frequent.
So the 5 doesn't play, it means more, huh?
It would probably mean more lights.
The lights that you're referring to are generally considered to be pedestrian lights, not traffic.
The acorn
not
ones
street lights. Yeah. They're pedestrian, they're sidewalk lights. It's really hard to get street illumination from those without causing a lot of glare, because it means it has to go sideways, and that's glare, as opposed to the downlight. So I almost think you have to stick with some kind of a cobra head down to satisfy the ODOT requirement, but I'm not positive of that.
Are there Cobra heads there now?
Yeah.
Yes, there are 5 now, and those are the ones that we're talking about how you want to address those. If you if you want to just keep them how they are or change them in some capacity.
And is that first option keeping them as they are?
Yes.
And it's still going to cost us $10,000? Keep them as they are?
Yeah,
That's
and what it would do
connect to
is
them.
it would provide the electrical connection underground, because right now they're all being fed overhead.
Okay.
So, and then you can see here in the slide that, so there are a couple poles, one on the east and one on the west, that show the Cobra head that are there now.
Okay, other questions?
Chairman, are there going to be lights on the new street light pole to help avoid another set of poles? Is there a light on top of those poles that just went in, or can there be?
I
Like
think,
that one there?
Yeah, I think two of them have, yeah. So that's two existing,
2 of the 5?
or 4. 2 of the 4. So it will remain the same as it is pre-construction.
So they'll take these 2 out, and the Cobra light will go on top of the street light pole? Should. I mean, that's, if I hear what's being said.
Yeah.
I don't,
It's kind of like if you were to ignore the traffic signal being there. There are 5 lights through the undergrounding portion that would be replaced. So yeah, these would remain.
The new poles will have arms, and above the arms will be the Cobra heads on 2 of the 4
on
poles.
2 of them, yeah. So these that we see, like that one will be removed because that's not a street light or traffic light pole.
Right.
Correct, yeah. The one on the right is being removed, the one on the left is what the new ones look like.
Yeah.
But the one on the left doesn't have the arm on it yet.
Yeah. But all I want to make sure is we're not going to end up with 2 on each side close together by saying existing.
Right. Nope.
Other questions? My question would be, with that additional 10,000, if we stay with the existing wood, has that been already figured into our overall cost of the project? Or is this additional?
Well, this would be included in the bid, I believe, which would come in the future, yeah.
Okay.
So this would, if we do the existing wood poles and lights, that's already included in the design and engineering contract that's underway
Good.
right now, yeah.
Okay.
I'd sure say stay with existing stuff. I see no reason to change. So I'd make that motion to stay with existing poles.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It carries.
Allison, Mr. Chairman, before we leave this topic, further down or in the middle of that, you had a nice, and I always appreciate you having the recap of budget and expenses as you move down. I just want to make sure that this one wasn't really up to date. The 1.2 million is west side, the 40,000 is east side, and the traffic light, we just bumped it up by 32, right? So it'd be the 387,000, and so the remaining really is 223,000 or so, if I did my math right. And that's why the 610 scared me. That
Okay. Yes.
so, well, if you'd check,
Sure.
I don't mean to put you on the spot here. It just seemed to jump out that
Let you know what the remaining
Yeah.
fiscal year funds are for the D-Lake project.
for this project.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good catch. Anything else? Okay, then let's move on to, get back up there again.
Actually, on the same project, there's just a schedule conversation.
Okay.
And this is going back to Wes's question about the traffic signal and the boring and timing for that. Plans are not yet complete, and the easements and permits are still needed. We have applied for all permits, which is 1 permit, with the Department of State Lands for the easement to go under the D River, and that's the only permit that we are able to apply for without having 100% plans ready. So we have kept up with the permit applications, but there are other easements and permits that will be needed that we have not yet begun. The easement descriptions are still coming in, and this is for private and public property owners. We are thinking that we'll be needing to shift the bidding schedule to start with the trenching part of the project first, and then end the project with the bore that goes under the D River. And that bore, at this point in time, we would expect that to happen in December of 2015, so about a year from now. Keep in mind, though, the project would start as soon as we're able to bid it properly. We really don't want to push the timing on this because with experience, acquiring easements is very time-consuming, or it can be. We have more than one to do, and we definitely want to make sure that they're all in place before the work happens rather than after or during. So that's kind of where staff is on scheduling for the utility undergrounding portion. So we wanted to kind of let you know that we're working as quickly as we can, but we're pretty sure we're not going to make that December of this year start time.
Okay. Anything else on the undergrounding? Okay, let's move on to the Cultural Center South Brick Wall update.
Okay. As you may recall, in June, the agency approved staff's recommendation to remove the existing wall, install weatherproof sheathing, and replace the brick. We made this decision to tear down the wall based on the one estimate that we received for the cost to test the removal of the black tar-like substance. Just to test if that was able to be removed was about $6,000, and there was no guarantee. We have some new information thanks to a cultural center volunteer who, with permission and support, tried one product in one brick area, which you can see here in the photograph, and we think we can clean the wall now. It's definitely the black tar has been removed from this particular brick that was used with one product. And since then, we have tried to test several areas with a couple of different products to see what works best. And we are now changing our recommendation based on this information that seems to have saved $6,000 in just testing something. Because we're running out of time and we think we can clean the wall, we're now recommending that we go back to option one, which was discussed, which is to clean the wall and then repair the missing brick and then seal the wall and repair the downspout system and then see how that performs this winter. We think that this will work just great. When we clean the wall, we would do that with a partnership or joint effort with Public Works staff who would do the upper areas with a bucket truck. And then the volunteer would work on the areas below, and that's kind of what we're thinking. We don't have all the numbers in yet, but our best estimate at this time would be that it'd be about $7,000. And
$7,000 to clean and seal?
Clean and seal, yeah. Clean, seal, do the roof flashing. That's about $400, which is at the top to connect, because there's a gap now where that aggregate dropped down, and then repair the missing brick and the downspout system, which would connect the roof runoff to the nearest stormwater catch basin. So we have asked 3 people to give us a bid on sealing the brick, and we're asking that the agency approve staff's recommendation to proceed with option 1. So sorry for the redo, but we have different information, and we just feel that this would be a better approach.
Comments? Questions?
How labor-intensive was this cleaning of the brick? Did that clean fairly easily, or was it?
It seemed as though the product did most of the work.
Yeah.
You know, it took a little time and focused effort. But, Kurt, do you have anything you'd like to contribute on that?
Yeah, when Nikki first called and said, hey, we have this volunteer who's done this test and you should come see it, I was skeptical, to say the least, and so I said, well, Larry, let's meet again and do it again. Show me how you did it. So we used a couple different products and we put it on, and it's a 15-minute product. You put it on and it just bubbled. It just came right off. It just hosed it a little bit, and it was gone.
Wow.
Yeah, it was. I was shocked how well it came off. Yeah. And there's bigger patches now. If you stop by there, you can see this was just the initial one that he had done. But we've done larger areas. It was amazing how well it came off.
Thank you.
This type of application would save us how much by not having to replace the wall?
Well, with our estimate of $7,000 and what we were originally anticipating about $40,000, so
It's pretty hard to go
pretty
wrong.
significant, yeah.
Well, what we don't know for sure, for absolute sure, is what caused that wall to be covered with those panels, those concrete panels, and whether or not we can seal the wall, and whether or not it's structurally sound. So it's not impossible that we would go through this and still have to replace it.
Okay.
It's not impossible. I can't assess the risk. Kurt would be better at probably, he's looked at it a lot closer than I have. I mean, one of the things we want to make sure of is it doesn't fall down on somebody, or fall down, period.
Right.
Because I don't know how it's attached. I'm assuming we can put some additional anchors into the old wall. If we go this route, I think we need to clean it, seal it, patch it, anchor it the best we can, and see if it holds. Meaning if it's weather tight.
Other comments or questions? What's the pleasure of the council?
Well, I'd move that we go with option one.
Okay, is there a second?
I'd second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It carries. We're going to go ahead and save that wall.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
are you going to bring in a consultant, a masonry consultant, to give us a estimate of whether the wall is in fact sound or not?
We did have an architect from Scott Edwards Architecture, who's worked with us on many things, come and visit the wall and provided a report. I don't know in terms of, he's not a structural engineer, but he's an architect, and he didn't mention that it was a concern. We can certainly ask that question to make sure.
Scott considered it a concern, questionable whether the wall was structurally sound or not?
No, there wasn't a concern
Not a
expressed in the
concern.
report, although we didn't directly ask that question. We were asking about the treatment of the wall. So,
Well, if we follow the city manager's suggestion of anchoring the wall, we would first of all have to determine whether it needs to be anchored, wouldn't we?
sure, yes, and we can definitely ask that question.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any other project updates?
Yes. So we have updates on the parking lot construction in Nelscott, and then we have a business gap analysis update that we will provide you with. I've got some pictures of the parking lot, and everything's moved along great. And, sorry, the PowerPoint is going forward without my urging there. So there are just a few outstanding items that are relatively minor for the most part, and that's some signage and some wheel stops for the parking spaces, plastic film over the ADA truncated domes, just really minor things, and then some chamfer on the bench posts, which I understand was done last Friday. That's just to make the top of those posts in the back, the piling, be at a little pointed shape. And so yeah, people are using it, and things are good.
I heard two comments from citizens, and both of them said the same thing. Wow. They couldn't believe how nice that looked.
That's good to hear. Then we have an update on a business gap analysis, and over the course of many years and numerous meetings, the subject of business recruitment and/or business expansion has been discussed, and usually the lack of current data prevents decisions from being made. Subjective information is shared amongst the group with varying degrees of supportive facts. I'm sure we've all encountered this from time to time. The need for reliable analysis of business in Lincoln City would be helpful to move discussions and strategic planning forward. So in conjunction with the economic development partners that are here locally, such as the Chamber of Commerce, the Small Business Development Association, and the Lincoln County Economic Development Alliance. The agency is preparing to issue a request for qualifications, or RFQ, which would commission a citywide business gap analysis. The scope of this work will include input and participation from a variety of local stakeholders and interested public. The business gap analysis would identify which employment sectors in Lincoln City are lacking or weak. And we anticipate these needs would be ranked and statements of benefit to the community would be included. The analysis will discuss incentives and marketing strategies and also provide an overview of positive and negative effects of big box development. And the resulting document would be used as a tool for the above-mentioned economic development partners, providing specific information and direction for business expansion opportunities and perhaps business recruitment. So this is something we've been talking about as we join economic development conversations that are hosted by the Chamber or interested folks in town. And this has arisen as a pretty big need. And this is where we're at with moving forward in RFQ. We would, of course, bring that back to you to issue if it were of interest to do.
Okay. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, Allison, did I hear you right? The actual analysis would be an employment analysis as far as where, if I heard you say weak gap, employment gaps or weak employment. So is that for recruiting businesses, potential?
Yes.
I think what's missing. So does that also include any kind of a business gap identification? What's missing in town? And I'm thinking of businesses.
Yes, that is what the core of this would be.
Okay.
Employment would kind of follow along with what those gaps in businesses are, what in the mix or the cluster, or specifically what they are. But yes, it would be primarily a business gap analysis, and then employment would just logically follow with where those gaps are.
I guess the businesses may all be retail, and so I'm trying to distinguish. Are we just looking at retail or other areas of business employment opportunity as well? Do you think? Or I guess we could work it into the RFP.
Yeah, Kurt, do you want to?
I think you've got it exactly right. Basically, it's looking at the business, not only the business sectors that would be, retail and health and that, but the actual businesses themselves.
Okay.
And looking at where we do have gaps, where are people leaving town? What are some opportunities if we wanted to have some businesses? And what businesses could we provide incentives for without making somebody mad who's been here for a long time with that same business? I go back to the barbershop thing. If we bring in another barbershop, those that are here are going to wonder, well, how come you didn't support us? Well, we've been here 20 years. So we want to look for those businesses that are opportunities.
Good. That's helpful. That'll be good.
Other questions or comments? It's mostly a data gathering process, then? It's not an action process at the end of that?
Correct.
Okay.
There might be action steps that are part of that. I don't know how it will result, because if I did, that'd be great to know the results of everything. But yeah, it's not. It'll just identify what those gaps are, and then it may or may not have recommendations.
Okay. In the 35 years that I've lived here, I can probably count on maybe both hands the number of economic development committees that we've had over that period of time. And it always seems like when we get to the end of that it just, okay, we've got the information, and how do we proceed? And we never knew how to proceed. So I was hoping that there might be some action that is forecasted after that.
We can certainly emphasize that in the RFQ.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope, that's it from me.
Yes.
Allison, do we know of any history of sister or brother cities that have gone through this process?
That's another Kurt question.
I can't tell you any offhand, but I did spend some time with a firm that does this type of work just to make sure that we're developing the right scope for this job. And apparently they do this all the time. This is quite common. So,
Thank you.
but in the RFQ, we will get that information from them as to where they've done this sort of thing before.
Anything else?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just to backtrack on an earlier comment when we were talking about the parking lot at Nelscott, and I do appreciate and agree with you that the parking lot really looks great. I think, though, we need to remind the citizens why it was done, and, great was expected, or how it looked was a nice thing, and we wanted that. But it was really a business decision, to get more parking lots, more parking spaces into that already limited parking area for the businesses. So I think it's important we always lead with the economic development aspect of that move. And as a sideline, it sure looks great and is being used, but it really was to, and is, to get additional parking. So I'd say that for the public to be reminded why we do these things.
And it's being proactive. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we move on. We have no public hearings. We have no resolutions. So we're open to agency member comments, if there are any. Starting down this end. Mr. Noriakis? No. Henry?
I'm done. Thank you.
And we are adjourned.